Batman, the Dark Knight and the world's greatest detective, and namesake of one of the greatest comic book-based video game series of all time. That's right, it's finally happening. I'll be taking a look at the Arkham series version of the Caped Crusader. Seeing as, not only Batman, but this specific version is one of the most popular superhero stories of recent memory, I don't think it's incredibly necessary to go over the character's history this time around. If you're clicking on this video, you've probably played the Arkham series before and are more so interested in where this character stands from a scaling perspective. With that said, let's start with Batman's durability and attack potency. This version of Batman scales in the wall to small building range. His armor has been built to withstand various armaments, from rubber bullets, shots from handguns, and shotgun blasts. He's consistently been shown bursting through both wooden and brick walls and floors. He's casually snapped swords in half and crushed a military-grade GPS. He's been shown withstanding being slammed through multiple large wooden crates by King Shark. He scales to Killer Croc, being able to overpower and ultimately defeat him in Arkham Origins. Killer Croc was shown, in said game, as being able to utterly demolish the halls of Blackgate Prison. He as well scales to Bane, having survived 3 strikes to the chest, which then launched him through a brick wall, this being in Batman's early years. Later on in his career, and after scaling to a Bane and now amped by an enhanced strain of the Venom formula, Batman was tossed clean through a brick wall, which due to its size and thickness, has been calculated to be within the small building range of energy. This same era Bane was shown tanking rounds from assault rifles and could casually launch cop cars. Bane himself even remarks, after being ragdolled by a Titan-enhanced individual, that the only thing more dangerous and destructive than the Titan formula was the Batman himself. Batman also scales to the Joker, who is shown surviving this. Seeing as Joker was laughing for the entire duration of the helicopter's fall, and with the prior scaling withstanding, it wouldn't be at all far-fetched to say Joker simply survived this explosion. Batman also seemingly survives an explosion of similar magnitude. Surely being in at least the small building range. Batman was literally right next to the bomb at the time of its first detonation, only having escaped the building prior to the second of the explosions. His equipment would scale in the small building range as well, seeing as his explosive gel can harm the likes of Bane, and his freezing grenades, while not entirely freezing the human body, seeing as the freezing of someone's blood and internal organs would surely kill them, they are able to produce enough ice to practically coat the human body, as well as creating relatively large masses of ice. The energy required to do this would sit in the small building range of energy. Batman's been stated to be an expert in most known forms of martial arts, a genius trained to the mental and physical peak of humanity. It's notable that each one of Bruce Wayne's trials in the initiation campaign of Arkham Origins are named after the following martial arts: Boryaku, Saishinteki Kyoyo, Taijutsu, and Togakure Ryu. This may be implying these are few of the martial arts Bruce Wayne learned throughout his training, or they could simply be titles of the specific trials in-game. Worth mentioning nonetheless. Batman has been shown defeating dozens of hardened criminals at once, including superhuman enhanced Titan monsters, proving he is skilled enough to best opponents which far outweigh him in numbers as well as weight class. One of Batman's best showings of his tactical mind is his battle with Victor Freeze in Arkham City, where after each attack, Mr. Freeze would ensure the method implemented by Batman would be impossible if attempted again, forcing the Dark Knight to employ an entirely new tactic all throughout the battle. Godzilla Rex, in his How Many Fighting Styles Does Batman Know in Batman Arkham Knight video, link in the description, ascertained that Batman knows boxing, jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai, judo, bojutsu, taijutsu, shuriken jutsu, Inton Jutsu, Kayaku Jutsu, Shinobi Iri, Kali, Taekwondo, Hapkido, Krav Maga, Jeet Kune Do, Wing Chun, Karate, Parkour, and Pro Wrestling. And corroborating this with the prior statement, Batman would be an expert-level practitioner of these martial arts. Batman has fought Lady Shiva to a standstill while outnumbered. Shiva herself was referred to by both Batman and the Arkham Origins database as having unmatched skill in hand-to-hand combat. While Batman lacked knowledge of Ra's al Ghul at this time, he was fully aware of Slade Wilson, a character with an enhanced capacity for mental and physical strength, who Batman scales above in skill regardless. His combat feats against stealth masters are also remarkable, seeing as he was able to defeat Catwoman, a character stated to have unrivaled stealth capabilities while blinded, seemingly relying on his other four senses. Batman would as well scale above this universe's Bat family, all being expert fighters in their own right. This was shown through Tim Drake, arguably the smartest character in this universe, admitting to his inevitable defeat against a hypothetical Joker-possessed Batman. This claim being backed up by a prior fight between a Poison Ivy-controlled Robin and an Arkham City-era Batman. Batman would scale above Jason Todd, who, while being apparently conflicted, was still pretty much effortlessly defeated by Batman while in close quarters. This next one's admittedly a bit shaky, but worth mentioning regardless. While suffering from a Joker blood-induced nightmare at the very onset of his affliction seen throughout Arkham Knight, Batman vividly dreams of a fight between himself and Nightwing, in which, having disregarded his no-killing rule, he was able to murder his former ward after an intense altercation. Batman's more lucid self stating that Dick Grayson was the best fighter he had ever trained. This means that with his intimate knowledge of Nightwing's skill level, Batman at least subconsciously acknowledges he could kill Nightwing if not holding back. Of course, Nightwing would probably rather die than fight his mentor and father figure with comparable bloodlust, but nonetheless, Batman has defeated Ra's al Ghul, a warlord who has been the head of the League of Assassins for some part of 600 years. The Dark Knight as well, depending on if the player chooses to have Azrael attempt to kill him or not, effortlessly defeated John Paul Valley, someone who had studied Batman for years, perfecting his tactics and fighting style, and was someone who Batman considered a greater heir to his mantle than potentially Tim Drake or Dick Grayson. On that note, both the Tiger Guard seen throughout Arkham City and the militia in Arkham Knight were both trained to counter Batman's tactics, as instructed by Hugo Strange, someone who had extensively studied Batman, learning his secret identity before even the likes of Edward Nygma ever could, and the former Robin, Jason Todd, respectively. Batman's skill throughout his career as a crime fighter would greatly improve, as noted by Jason Todd. So much so that he'd go from sharing an intense hand-to-hand battle with Deathstroke at the dawn of his tenure to essentially one-shotting him by the twilight of his career. Let it be known that Jason Todd, possessing an intimate knowledge of Batman's skill and his rogues gallery, considered Deathstroke to be the single toughest opponent the Dark Knight had ever faced, which he had done so a handful of times prior to Arkham Knight. Batman's mental endurance is also undoubtedly beyond peak human, seeing as each one of the Arkham games takes place over the span of a single night. Batman's been shot, beaten, blown up, mentally tortured, poisoned to near death multiple times, gripped with insanity, and faced down the deaths of his allies, and has still, every time, found the will to ultimately succeed in his goal of protecting Gotham City. 8 of the world's deadliest assassins, the Blackgate prison riots, running a gauntlet of his rogues throughout the Arkham Insane Asylum and then the prison city, Arkham City. Also, seeing that the true ending of Arkham Knight is only unlocked after defeating his entire rogues gallery, it is canonical that Batman did so in the span of one night, that being every main mission, side mission, Riddler challenge, and DLC mission in Arkham Knight was done by Batman at a maximum of 12 hours. Batman has been stated to be trained in all aspects of criminology, and it shows. Through his detective vision, he can see through walls and an enemy's arsenal or mental state, fingerprints, footprints, and bullet casings and trajectories. He has a variety of visual filters capable of detecting trace levels of particles in the air. His cowl is as well equipped with night vision, and his batsuit is concealed from thermal imaging as long as Batman remains utterly still, which would be a non-issue for the Dark Knight, seeing as he once entered a deep meditative state for 2 days with only around 30% of oxygen in his system. As stated by Sciencing.com, physical activity becomes detrimental in an environment containing around 20% oxygen. On that note, Batman's willpower is also shown to be blatantly superhuman, seeing as his resistance to Scarecrow's fear toxin is a feat of mental fortitude greater than that of 10 men. Batman's equipment further consists of batarangs, both remote-controlled and of the sonic variety, either inducing pain in an AoE attack or a close proximity electric shock, a gas mask capable of filtering out agents such as a mild sleeping gas, his aforementioned explosive gel capable of harming enemies or blasting holes through weakened walls, flashbangs and smoke bombs, his disruptor which can disable normal firearms and more exotic weapons like Mr. Freeze's ice cannon after he obtained the specifics of the weapon from Mr. Freeze's suit. It can as well track enemies and vehicles, sabotage crates of ammunition, and sabotage a variety of weaponry and equipment, including sentry guns, camouflage, otherwise invisible to detective vision, mines, medical personnel, stun sticks, drone controllers, and enemies employing detective mode jammers, a remote electric charge to empower machinery or stun opponents, a remote hacking device useful for either disabling the detection mechanisms of the militia drones or just outright destroying them, and a voice synthesizer capable of replicating the vocal signatures of others as a means of bypassing verbal locks. And you can't really have a list of Batman's gadgets without including the Batmobile, which Batman can either summon or pilot remotely, and can reach a top speed of 272 miles per hour. It has a 60mm cannon shown to be able to essentially vaporize militia tanks, an anti-tank Vulcan cannon armed with incendiary rounds, a barrage of missiles capable of locking on and attacking multiple targets at once, a non-lethal riot suppressor, and a high-voltage current running along its exterior. It's also air-sealed, capable of creating an EMP used to temporarily shut down militia tanks. Later models also possess an energy cell immune to the adverse effects of the cloud burst, which had fried the prior model of Batmobile. Batman has consistently dodged the likes of handgun bullets from various ranges, Deadshot's gauntlets, rocket launchers, grenade launchers, and with his Fear multi-takedown, he could bob and weave through rooms of assault rifle fire, and scaling off of Deadshot, who dodged a handgun round at point-blank range, and a young Jason Todd, who is reacting to some variety of minigun wielded in a Joker mech suit. All of these feats would put Arkham Batman's reaction and combat speed at Supersonic Plus. One exception would be his apparent outrunning of an explosion in the Harley's Revenge DLC. Notice the initial explosion, but Batman's unseen. Then, Batman is able to evade the second blast as it's going off. This could very well be an outlier, but I'll include it for consideration and for the sake of comprehensiveness. And it's worth stating that any poor speed showing taking place before Arkham Knight could be dismissed, seeing as Batman remarks that his Arkham Knight suit is faster and more mobile than the previous ones, meaning we can say that his speed feats shown throughout that game are more indicative of Batman's true speed, unencumbered by his prior, more motion-inhibiting armors. In closing, the Arkhamverse's version of the Dark Knight is an incredibly versatile street-level character, possessing a swath of combat-applicable knowledge, a varied arsenal of weapons and technology, and a character possessing superhuman levels of willpower and determination. Regardless of what the future holds, for this version of the Caped Crusader, any superstitious and cowardly criminal seeking to sow the seeds of disorder should always remember to fear the Batman.